I can see a time in the future when the dollar is falling and a lot of money is being printed. Inflation is 15 to 20% a year, and the yield curve is in charge of it. Bitcoin is at $150,000 and will soon reach $300,000. Gold is at $3,000 and will soon reach $5 million. Someone in Washington, D.C. will say, you know what, these guys sound like money. This dollar is being killed. They're killing people, which is bad. This is about protecting the country's safety. The dollar needs to be saved. I think I know how to fix that. We should tax capital gains on gold at 90% and capital gains on Bitcoin at 90%. Also, we're going to get all the Bitcoin from the last few years. Lepard has changed from being a loyal gold bug to a Bitcoin maximalist. He thinks that the two things are a lot alike. He now thinks that Bitcoin is the best way to protect against traditional currency debasement. Central banks' careless use of money and the inevitable fall of the global financial system. Lepard recently had an interesting conversation with YouTuber Robert Breedlove, in which they talked about things like Executive Order 6102 on April 5, 1933, U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed Executive Order 6102, which said that people could not keep gold coins for too long. Bullion and gold papers made of gold in the United States. Due to the bad economy, investors were stockpiling gold, which slowed down growth and made the Great Depression worse. People had to give most of their gold to the Federal Reserve by May 1, 1933, in return for $26 per troy ounce. This was the order that Roosevelt talked about with Breedlove. Lepard looked at some worrying similarities between the American economy in the 1930s and the U.S. economy now. He warns that the U.S. government might soon feel compelled to issue a similar order, but this time it will be about Bitcoin. Let's look at why Roosevelt did what he did again. Okay. There was a downturn at the time. It was 1933, and several banks had just failed. A huge amount of money had been lost, and this had never happened before. Prices for homes had dropped by 80%, 90%, and more. As much as they tried to make money and send it out, there was just not enough in the system to pay for all of these things. Unemployment was at 30%, and they knew it. Also, they were using the gold standard. That's right, you could trade $1 for a $20 gold coin at a bank, back and forth, and they knew they had to get out of this deflationary situation. They knew they had to inflate, and they knew that to do that, they had to drive up the price of gold. So Roosevelt did what he knew was wrong, and my grandfather hated him for it. He told her, give up your gold or go to jail for $10,000. By the way, there's a lot of non-compliance even back then. It was a much more compliant country that believed in the government, but still a lot of people said, you know, screw you, I'm not doing that, but many people did. And of course, soon after he turned it in, he revalued it from the 2067 to $35, and so it was a 70% devaluation of the dollar in gold terms, and then went back on the gold standard, but made it illegal for Americans to own it, and so it was. Really a way of reinflating the currency and getting out of the deflationary event that had occurred. And by the way, that event occurred because of Federal Reserve violating their charter, and Federal Reserve was formed in 1913. 3 years later, World War II broke out right. They immediately violated the charter and printed money to help finance the war, and then they kept going and they held their interest rates artificially low, which is what created the bubble in '29. And you know Bernanke, who's a scholar of the Depression, said, well, the mistake there was we didn't print enough money after the bubble burst. No, the mistake was that interest rates were kept too low, which caused the bubble in the first place. By the way, that hurt my grandfather and his wife's business a lot because they had taken on debt to grow it and were getting the wrong messages, you know. It was a sign that the country was in bad shape. As you grow your business, keep in mind that the economy wasn't on fire. In fact, it was hyperinflating. Or, you know, right because of fake signs, so they did it to get out of a downward trap. And then they thought that letting people own this is too risky. Yes, we want to be in charge of this gold, not the people who own it. By the way, you can't hold it anymore. During that 10 years, gold mine stocks went up 10 times. This is because it was the only way for people in the US to take part, right? Okay, let's move on because this is a difficult subject. Okay, because I've had people, you know, a lot of people in high places in the Bitcoin world tell me why we shouldn't push the hyperinflation stories because it's not really true. It's pretty scary. And we don't want to scare people. We want to be positive about Bitcoin and where it goes. But a few years ago when I was on Twitter, I would always post the day's hyperinflation chart. But you know, I'm not a doomster. Let's be honest about this because of the money mess we're in. Hyperinflation is one thing that could happen. You can't deny that the best case situation is for us to have high inflation and switch to sound money. That's what I want to happen. Okay, I get it. Hyperinflation hurts a lot of people. That's not something I want to happen. Of course, but act like it can't happen. I believe that is too simple for you. There's no way you can see this. Yes, let's talk about the government. We know they're not telling the truth. We know they keep themselves safe and do everything they can to keep their plan going. Yeah, I can see that coming. That's why I believe it's so important for everyone to hold their own money and stay away from ETFs. In fact, I can see a time in the future when the dollar will be falling. A lot of money is being made. You can control the yield curve. It's rising by 15 to 20% a year. Bitcoin is at $150,000 and will soon reach $300,000. Gold is at $3,000 and will soon reach $5 million. Someone in Washington, D.C. will say, you know what, these guys sound like money. This dollar is being killed. These people are killing, which is bad. There is a threat to national security here. We need to save the dollar, and in the past, people bought war bonds to pay for World War II. You know it will turn into a campaign. Good money people are bad. As a result, they are messing up our great Keynesian system. Here's an idea: we should tax capital gains on gold at 90% and capital gains on Bitcoin at 90%. Maybe they should also have to hand over their gold, since no one owns gold anymore. And it would be, even though all the armed people who shop at Costco aren't turning in the gold, I promise you that it's over their dead body. However, they may say, by the way, we're going to take all the Bitcoin, and you know what I mean? Some people think that a lot of bad things are happening. It's possible that they approve these ETFs with the thought that we would prefer to have this in a system that we can manage. Of course, and call it in and have everyone be a hodler with their own way to get custody of their own children. It's pretty simple for them to do a 6,102 on Bitcoin if they do decide to do one. They call Fidelity, They ask BlackRock to come in. They call all the big ones and say, guys, it's over. Give them cash. We want you to send us Bitcoin. In the United States, it is against the law to own Bitcoin. Yeah, what are the chances of that happening? They're not zero though, right? I don't know if they're 50% or not. I don't know how to measure that, but I'd say that has a 30% chance being won today. Yeah, I think we've pushed these issues far enough away, and there are enough Bitcoiners, supporters of sound money, and people who know about their system that it just dies without them being able to grab us by the throat, right? Do you understand? That's why. I hope we move to our standard without them trying to do that. But I guess that's just a wish on my part. As you know, they might try to do that and that, but the audience should hear, That's why there's a risk, right? We are hardcore Maxi fans because of this. Bitcoin users say don't give them your coins or keys. Yes, and this means that if you have your coins on an ETF at Coinbase, they are safe there. They could tell you, hey guys, I'm sorry. We're going to give you money. Yes, we know each one is worth $200,000, that's fine. We won't take them from you. We'll give you the cash value of them today, right? You are going to return those coins to the government, though. All right, and guys like me, if they go that way and decide they're going to steal the fruits of my 66 years of work, my answer will be, Mo, on the Bay Mother, I'm on a boat to Italy. So get it right. Yeah, I have my 12 words, and unless Italy agrees, I'll be on a boat to El Salvador, right? I'm going to live somewhere where my property rights are recognized, though. I believe that all true Bitcoin supporters feel the same way. Also, I'm no longer a U.S. citizen. It shouldn't happen so quickly that it pushes them into that, but I hope we move forward in the right way. Yes, Bitcoin has grown stronger and richer. Like I said in another podcast post, Madeira, I could see some.